Hi, it's another Friday, and I'm back to have a conversation with you. How have you been? How have you been? I mean, this week has been reflective for me. I've changed in a lot of ways, and growth is key for me right now. And every time I see growth in a certain aspect of my life, I get excited because then it means that all the deliberate interventions that I'm putting in place to ensure that I grow beyond a certain point, are happening, and the habits, what do you call it, organizational skills that I'm using to kind of establish a sense of growth and stability for myself is happening. I believe in myself, and I'm taking my voice back by choosing me every day and being intentional about who I am and my needs and the kind of things that I would want to do with my voice. And for me, that's progress. The daily choices I make every day about going forward, who I want to be and the kind of journey I want to take. That's progress for me. So yeah. Now let's get back to today's topic. Quite a deep one. We're just going to scratch the surface, but we're going to talk about abuse, And I know people are going to ask, what, like abuse? What are you talking about? I'm not talking about drug abuse or any other kind of abuse. Abuse, for the purposes of our show, put a definition on it, is the deliberate mistreatment of anyone by another person, and for the purposes of our conversation today, we're going to add another word to the abuse, and the word is domestic. So we have domestic abuse. We'll begin to scratch the surface of what abuse is in a domestic setting, and let's see how it will go. I'm just going to speak off cuff, from personal experiences, read experiences, and everything. And let's take note that abuse happens in different settings. In school, we call it bullying. At work, you have people bosses or even colleagues who gang up against colleagues, set them up, lie against them, and all kinds of things. Those are also abuse, but we're not going to go into that yet. So to establish domestic abuse, which is usually mistreatment of a partner, married or unmarried, you'd have to have a pattern, a pattern that is kind of justified by certain incidents happening over and over and over and over again. Because of course, once there are human beings, kind of interacting based on their experiences, even upbringing, growth, schools, where they come from, personal experiences that they've had, there will sometimes be clashes. It is in how you resolve it that will determine whether there's a pattern of abuse or not. So let's get into that. Now, mind you, abuse can happen to both male and female, as in domestic abuse. However, this type of crime, it is a crime, when we talk about it, people seem to say, oh, but he's your partner or she's your partner, let it go. But it is a crime, and which is deeply rooted in societal inequality between men and women. So what we tend to find is that the ratio of women who suffer from abuse against that of men is not that much. But men can also be abused, and what we need to understand is that any woman can experience multiple incidents of abuse, which could constitute anything in a domestic setting, which can include but not be limited to coercive control. So what is coercive control? It is a pattern of intimidation, degradation, isolation, and control, like it says in the name, and with the use of threat of physical or sexual violence. Most of the time, perpetrators of the abuse will later try to explain their behavior, as one of extreme love for the victim. And they tend to use phrases like, I wanted to make sure I know you love me, I'm keeping you from bad company or influence, I was angry because you didn't listen. Do not trust those words. They are gaslighting you. Now, gaslighting is a whole topic on its own, but we will speak about it later, but coercive control, kind of intimidating you and convincing you about who not to speak to her, saying, oh, but can you even do this, isolating you from your friends, and just basically controlling your every move. Even if you sell something, they want to be the one to choose what color you are selling and that kind of thing, not even giving you a chance to make choices and grow in whatever you want to do. So yeah, that's coercive control. And now we are moving on to physiological, psychological or emotional abuse. Now that's a deep kind of worms. This is usually the use of humiliation, negating your ideas and feelings and thoughts. Control comes in there as well. This could range from what you wear, who you talk to, where you work. And by this we do not mean constructive dialogue between partners where you're making decisions that will seek input from both of you and ensure that you're on the same path. No, that's not what we're talking about. So let's get that clear. There are accusations. The victim is constantly accused of everything under the sun. This is usually so because the perpetrator wants to justify his or her abuse, just to make sure that they are painting the victim in a certain light, in a certain way, even in their mind. So because you see, being cruel and mistreating someone for so long, how do you even justify that? So you have to create a certain picture about them. Now, immediately you create that picture about them, it becomes a reality, and you start trying to convince other people to also have that picture about that person because you want the abuse to stick, So even after the false accusations, the perpetrator will still blame the victim and deny their role in the false accusation by saying, well, if you hadn't done this, or if you had told me, or if you had given me this information, I would not have assumed. But did you ask? That's the question. Did you ask? And even when you sometimes ask and we give the exact explanation of the situation, they tend to twist it because, of course, they have a certain idea in their minds that they want to stick. So, you can't win. That's the whole point when it comes to abuse. When a perpetrator decides that they are going for a certain accusation, you can't win. So sometimes you just need to be quiet, Now, name calling you names like stupid, loser, can't you think, or too many awfully demeaning words which we do not want to use on this platform because it can be a trigger for some people who are trying to heal from abuse. Now, some of them also use derogatory pet names, sometimes given names like Fatso, chubby friend, or obolo, as we call it in these parts. In these parts, when we say obolo, it means a fat person, which for most part are nice because whoever that you are dealing with might be struggling with the weight gain. Of course, they see themselves in the mirror. They see their cheeks, they see their neckline getting missing. They can't fit into their favorite jeans or dress, and they are looking for a way out. And instead of you being supportive, you think that teasing them is the way to go. No, I don't think so. Character assassination, this can be subtle and usually involves words like always. So they are deliberately degrading your character to fit a certain model. So you are always chatting on your phone. Note, this could even be when the victim might be reading or start. What doesn't the phone have these days? But because they want to create a certain impression, they use words like, oh, you're always chatting on your phone. Oh, you're always destroying my clothes because after one wash, a color ran into one of their shirts or clothes or whatever. Oh, you are always scratching the car. That's because the church driver mistakenly scratched your car. Or you're always breaking a plate. Or you're always doing something. So it becomes a language that you speak, and the expectancy of you is that you are always up to no good, right? That's character assassination. Yelling, threatening, yelling at you, threatening to flash your phone, throw you out of the house, hit you with a table, being patronizing. Or what are you going to do? Who do you even have to go and speak to? If you go and speak to anyone, I'll go and tell them that you're lying. Who, between you and I, who will they believe? And all those kind of things, So what are you going to use this for? Or do you even understand what is being said? Are you sure you have some understanding? Things that make you second guess yourself and your capabilities. They are very good at that. Publicly embarrassing you, telling you to sit down whilst you're dancing at an event, deciding what you mean, what you need, even dining out, choosing a meal for yourself. They will decide that, no, I want you to eat this, when you've expressed, categorically or beforehand that you don't want to have that meal. So they will say, oh no, choose it, I'm paying for it, blah blah blah. So they kind of try to change your mind and do all of that. They can be dismissive of your feelings. You tell them, you did A, B, C, D, and I didn't like it. Oh, I was just, what do you mean I did? I didn't do anything. I didn't mean it that way. Oh, as for you, you don't know how to take jokes. Even their body language, smacking, eye rolling, etc. All those things. Now, jokes. Now, this is major jokes, because people have a dig at people and they say, oh, we're joking, you ought to laugh. But then once the joke is not targeted at you, it's funny, right? We always forget that once the joke is not targeted at you, it's funny. All is well and good, because it's not hitting you in an emotional space where you already have insecurities. So they would make a critique seem like a joke, but just because you know where they are driving at, you call them out and they make it look like, oh, I was just joking. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? Don't you know how to play? Or oh, it was just a joke. So they make you look foolish, But then that the joke was not just a joke, They belittle your achievements and aspirations, monitoring your whereabouts, insist you respond to a text and a call immediately, and if you don't, you'll have to account for the time. If it was 10 minutes before you responded to the text or the phone call, you would have to account for what you were doing in between that time, why you didn't answer the text or the phone call. Digitally spying on you, on your internet history, emails, text, call log, even demanding passwords. Now, don't get me wrong at all. Transparency is essential for a relationship to thrive. But once you get into the whole mode of spying and using any little thing such as a 2-minute call or a simple how are you doing to create a mountain, we have a problem, because what partners need to understand is, yes, if you have a problem with a relationship between your partner and their friend or someone else, you need to speak about it and say, I have A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z problem. But you don't have any tangible explanation. All you do is, I said don't talk to this person. I said don't do this. I said, why do you speak to... Now, bear in mind, sometimes there's a history, be it male or female friends that your partner has. It doesn't matter. You just need to monitor what they are saying to what the person, because you're abusing them. That if they tend to have a conversation, or sometimes abusers tend to think that the victims have no idea what's going on, so they feel like someone will enlighten them. No, that's not the case. They're just giving you a chance to change, So the day that they wake up and they decide that, I've had enough, abusers tend to say, oh, why have you had enough? It's so and so who's telling you things, right? Like, am I stupid? Do I not know what I'm going through? Basically. So understand that there's a difference between being transparent and spying. That's why I said spying. Spine is a big deal. Creating a whole mountain out of a molehill. No, we don't do that. Unilateral decision making. Now, my word is final. In this house, we don't, have any consultations on even things as simple as paint or curtain color or plants or changing construction, moving a plant, whatever. Who gave you permission to buy a duvet? Who gave you permission to cut the tree? You do not do this until you seek permission from my house or I throw you out. Fault finding, direct orders, sexual abuse in a relationship, in marriage, it happens. I'm not talking about sexual abuse where people don't even know each other and they attack them. It happens in marriage as well, where the partner, knowing fully well that they've abused their wife, they've abused their husband, tries to use sex as a tool to establish dominance or sometimes establish control over their partner, sometimes even using biblical scripture, So it's a really difficult space to be in, because how does a wife or a husband say, look, my wife raped me, or my spouse raped me? It's very difficult, but it happens. Walking on eggshells, because you don't know what's going to happen, where the explosion is going to come from. Financial abuse, verbal abuse, insults, everything that comes with it. I could go on and on and on and on. But the funny thing about abusers, with everything and the wealth of evidence of what they are doing, they will deny any form of abuse towards you. They will even make up stories and put down your interest. When a situation needs to be addressed, they will just walk out on you, give you the silent treatment. They will dehumanize you by ignoring you, pretend to be asleep or watching TV or scroll through their phone. They will shut down the communication immediately and say that, oh, why are you upset? I was only trying to correct you, So why are you upset? Not even hearing. What do you mean you are trying to correct me? You really? It becomes really difficult, and they insinuate that they own you sometimes, and they keep you from socializing. They even turn around and tell people that, oh, you are antisocial, to cement that thing. So when they prevent you from going somewhere, then, oh, that's how she is, or that's how he is. Their partner said they are this. So, there are so many facets I feel like I've not touched on, but I'll probably be here for an entire day and a half if we don't put a lid on it. So now that you have an idea of what abuse looks like, yes, what you can do, to deal with it and to handle it better. I don't advocate for staying in the very environment that is breaking you down. I want to note this. Abuse is not the same as a difficult marriage. They are two different, totally ball games altogether. Abuse is not a difficult marriage. A difficult marriage we'll talk about that. I think I need to expand on what a difficult marriage is, and that can be fixed by marriage counseling. Now, abuse cannot be fixed by marriage counseling, because sometimes the perpetrator is coming from a space where they've seen it happen. That's the psychology with which they are built. They probably don't even see anything wrong with their behavior. Even though they know it is wrong, that is what they know what to do, because they know it is wrong, because they cannot accept in front of anyone that, I treated my wife in such an abominable manner, because that's what it is, an abominable manner. So, first of all, for the victim, I'm speaking for the victims, accept that the abuse isn't your responsibility. You are not at fault. Your perpetrator has a choice. They decide to respond to whatever situation that they want to based on the choices that they are making. You do not have to do anything to them or for them to stop the abuse, do not try to reason with the abuser. Trust me, it will not work, because it's unlikely they will break this pattern without professional counseling, and that is their responsibility and not yours. Now, the problem that lies in there is that to admit that they are causing you pain means they are taking responsibility for their behavior, and most of the time they do not want to take responsibility. So it becomes very, very, very difficult, right? It becomes very difficult. Now, secondly, this is difficult to do, so I will suggest, especially when you have kids or you do not have a means to leave, just avoiding them, decide not to respond to the abuse, because what it is that they thrive on the conflict and they like the attention it gives them, because they get a chance to act holy. I said what? Act holy. Note, I said act holy because that's what it is, an act. So disengage and limit exposure to the abuser if you can. Go grey rock, which is not communicating with them at all if you don't have to, and just find some grace and and moments to filter everything that's happening. Now, I would say this: find a therapist. I cannot overemphasize this enough. A therapist doesn't work magic, but they set you on a path to healing. So find a therapist, give yourself time to heal, reach out to supportive friends and family or a network, because not all listeners or hearers of your story will be supportive. You'll sometimes be amazed at the people who will, pseudo abuse you through your partner by lending credits or insinuating that you kind of caused the abuse. Trust me on this. You do not have to do anything to be abused by your partner. They have a choice in dealing with the issue. Even if it is adultery, there is a choice and a manner in which it can be dealt with. So under no circumstances should anyone be dealt with by a partner in an abusive manner because they feel like they've wronged them or they've done anything to them. No, it is wrong. So I will say this: if they are not supportive, cut them loose. What did I say? Cut them loose and fast, so they do not compound the trauma you are already having or have to deal with. Trust me, abuse comes with a lot of trauma, especially when you already have inner child wounds that you haven't healed. You do not even want to deal with people on that level. That's why I'm saying that we're just scratching the surface, because there's so many components and boxes and little drawers that we have to open and shake out and remove the cobwebs, So, there are many resources out there and many people who will believe you. Do not lose yourself to abuse. If not for yourself, for your children, because you see, at some point you've got to stand up and break the cycle, because there are times where we talk about transgenerational trauma, or we sometimes refer to them as generational curses. I believe in the power of prayer, like I said in my other podcast, Times and Season, but there are some things that have become a psychological response to experiences that we've had. So it demands that the mind renews itself and creates another path, right? And creates another path so that you can break the cycle. So you've got to sometimes do this for your children, not necessarily even about you. Yes, you will heal in the process, but are you going to allow your children also come and relive that pain? No. So you've got to break that cycle. And lastly, pray. Explore the word of God and what it says about abuse, because trust me when I say God is not silent on abuse. The church is, but God, he's not silent on abuse. So this is just to let you know what abuse is, how you can get out of it. I forgot to mention document, because that's the only way you can create that there is a pattern. So learn to document the events. There are many apps and tools out there that you can use. So if you need any resources, any help, a listening ear, whatever, I am here. This is a no judgment area. This is a space where we understand and believe you, because we've walked in those shoes, right? So I just want to say thank you so much for listening to me have this conversation with you as we beamed a little light into the dark world of abuse. And I want to say that we will catch up again soon. And as always, I appreciate you stopping by. I love you. Smile and be good and kind to yourself. Have an amazing, amazing weekend. Love always. Ama.